All right, family, we are live. Woo! Thanks for being patient, family. Thanks for being patient. I just got back to New York today. As you can see, I'm in my old setup. I got the Buddha with me. You see, Blue got the Matrix phone. He got the Matrix phone.
That's right. We dialing
Yes.
in for the Matrix, for the Blueport live and direct. Look, you got the Buddha with the microphone. You feel me?
Mm-hmm.
I had to come with it.
I hear you, man. Shit, I hear you, man. What's going on, family? How y'all doing? How y'all doing? Has it started? We should be live. Y'all know. Y'all see me? Let me know if y'all can see me, because somebody said greetings. Has it started? Let me know if y'all could hear me.
It says it's live. Yeah.
Yeah, it says it's live. I see that. Definitely. I want to make sure. Let me know, family. We can. Okay, great, great, great. All right, so let's start it like this, family. Make sure you hit that like button. Let me text the good people in my community app. Family, if you want to be notified personally by me when I go live, make sure you text the name Rich to 646-760-7806. Okay, family, make sure you text Rich to 646-760-7806. We're gonna get to some commercials real quick, and we'll be right back. And we're gonna get started with a powerful show tonight, family. All right, we'll be right back.
Mhm.
Hey there! Had a bad dream? I have dreams too. Some parts are scary and some parts are fun. Always remind yourself it's only a dream and everything will be okay. I had a dream about being in a forest too. Check it out, my pet Petey was with me. Order your copy of Kayla Petey and the Forest on Amazon today.
Hey family, this is King Simon. Don't forget about getting your new motivation session at 347-496-1022. And don't forget about the Cosmic Alignment Workshop on May the 15th. Go to zenbar.org. That's zenbar.org.
All right, family. Also, make sure you'll sign up for the Wayne Chandler, the master teacher Wayne Chandler's workshop. That link is in the description of this video. He's having a Qigong, the energy training workshop, family. So make sure you sign up for that. That link is in the workshop. Blue Pill, welcome back. Welcome back, my brother. Welcome back.
Yes, indeed. It's an honor to be here. Peace to you and yours. What's good, my brother, Father Rich? You back in Brooklyn, huh?
Yeah. I'm in Brooklyn. I came back. I ain't gonna be here too long. Head back down to the A, but I had to come back and take care of some business up here. And well, it was what a difference, even just with the whole the mask thing. I you see it's such a huge difference between Atlanta and New York, but we ain't gonna get
You
into
know,
details with that. But huge difference,
we
man. It's such a
we
huge
we're
difference.
not gonna get into detail with that, but we are gonna allow that to segue into tonight's conversation, if you would allow me to,
Indeed, indeed. Go
right?
ahead, my brother.
Because I wanted to have a whole conversation with you at some point about change of environment, right? Because we attempt to make this case so many times about environment and the importance of environments on our genetics, our epigenomes.
Hmm.
So it would be remiss for me, you know, the 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 way that I'm going forward talking about these 44s, from now in the future, it's going to be on a genome level, on a
Mm,
genomic level. I think that I've been talking cosmic too much, right?
mm,
And it is as above, so below. But the majority of my focus and conversation has been reinterpreting a conversation I've been having with the cosmos. And I'm speaking to the people as if everybody understands cosmic language, and that's not really the case.
mm, mm.
But if you bring it back to Earth and you speak to it from a genome space, everybody, for the most part, we can understand genetics.
Indeed.
So when we say that environment has a identifiable impact on us, right?
Mm,
People say it all the time. They be like, "Well, I'm a product of my environment,"
mm.
you know. But people don't focus enough to say what aspect of my environment is a product of me, right? And especially when you realize that people have the potential because of our inert power, all the things that people are coming on this channel and speaking about our inner abilities once we recognize and realize who we are we wake this energy up in us. And that
Mm-hmm.
particular energy at its pinnacle point, we call it the Christ energy or Christ consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
And the identifiable factor of someone who has reached enlightenment or Christ consciousness is that person is so much into their inner world, right? They have so much conquered their inner enemy, because your
Mm-hmm.
enemy is your inner me, right? They are
Mm-hmm.
so triumphant in
Mm-hmm.
that
Mm-hmm.
that the bandwidth of their frequency is now that which not only reflects that they themselves have healed themselves, but they now start healing their environment.
Mm-hmm.
So everybody that comes into circumference into their everyone that comes into their fields of resonance to their circumference, they feel the frequency as well, right? They're elated, they're happy, they're joyous, right? And
Mm-hmm.
then we can even step back further and say, well, let's take an identifiable look and see, does that actually manifest itself in the real world that we know and can identify with because we participate in it, right?
Right,
Instead of
right,
just
right,
it
right.
being something nebulous and cosmic.
Mm-hmm.
There's a term that goes around called gentrification, right? And what's the
Mm-hmm.
identifiable markers, though, of gentrification? Almost in every hood throughout America, definitely the ones that I've traveled to, the identifiable markers of gentrification is that you're gonna go somewhere that was once semi quote unquote dilapidated, right? We call it the hood,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which means what? It was some shit boarded up. You know, the animals go to the street, they go to the bathroom right there on the street. Nobody really pick it up,
Mm-hmm.
right? The shit desolate. Plants don't even grow there.
Mm. Mm, facts.
And if they do, they grow in patches,
Mm-hmm.
right? They grow in patches. And then the people who are part of that particular ecosystem, they even replicate that in their own physical being,
Mm-hmm.
right? But then other individuals mysteriously come into that environment and automatically you start doing what? You start seeing the first sign. You see a coffee shop,
Mm-hmm.
right? Which means that these people insist on being woke. You see a coffee spot and they tend to, for some reason, gather around particular coffee spots. But then you'll see pastel colors, right? They'll start painting buildings earth tones and pastel colors. And then you see community gardens. And all of a sudden, shit start growing back, right? You be like, yo, you know how long that patch of dirt was treated so it can return to, something that was green and flourishing, and all of a sudden some people with a different energy came into the community, and then the community seemed to respond to them in that environment. Now people would say, oh, everywhere that they go, they are purposely or intentionally terraforming these environments, right, back to look like or replicate something that identifies as alive and progressive. You feel me? But are we really to believe that people are going all around the country or all around the world and they have the same plan or the same agenda or the same design every single time, and they're able to execute that shit, right? Like so seamlessly, even if you know what the plot is. So, you know, that's definitely an identifiable factor that we all can sit back and just observe to say, well, goddamn, we always say that we're products of our environment, but what about you impacting? What about your environment being a product of you, right? So does that necessitate once again that there's something about us that needs to change when it comes to our frequency? And the thing that denotes our frequency being somewhat disturbed or distorted or incoherent, right, is the nature of our relationships. You feel me? The nature of
Mm-hmm.
our relationships. So as much as what we say about gentrifiers, or even so much as what we say about colonizers, or even so much of what we say about Europeans may be particularly true, the one thing that we also can say is that they put on chaos and all sorts of other activity to secure for their family, right? To secure for their family. So even the agendas that we're talking about when we speak about days, and all of these people that we're speaking about, they are families, right? They're people who ultimately got a taste of riches and moved into wealth, and they secured a bag for their family, and they unify with other families. And people say, oh, they got a 500, 100, 300, 500 year agenda, as if that's not what every family's supposed to have, right? So what is the nature and the status of our relationships in particular that seems so fractured that it always translates, and not only where we live, what it is that we do, you know,
Mm-hmm.
but who it is that we see when we look in the mirror, right? So we have this fractured identity, and people are suffering from all sorts of identity politics, right? I don't know, I look in the mirror, I don't see myself. Society doesn't provide you with any proper cultural reference to identify yourself in the cultural context. You know what I'm saying? If something comes from this particular culture before they assimilate it into uh, the general society or general culture, for the first, they want to call it, they want to specify it to an ethnic group, but if it becomes larger than life and it becomes an art form and it becomes the highest form of science like jazz, then it becomes American culture. And you don't no longer hear them saying, oh, that's black music, right? And ultimately, probably the same thing will be done with hip hop, where they like, it can't be possibly a black culture. The number one selling guys are white, number one selling rappers are white guy. So how does that work if it's black culture, right? When predominantly, you know, um, as they see it, they like shit. He's the rapper's favorite rapper, so this particular European is the top white guy. He's the rapper that's on head of what's considered black culture. So how do you even contain that? And you got to remix that and say, oh, that's just an American art form, and that's not something necessarily that we can utilize for our identity. So I say all that to say that I want to start this conversation by introducing this book into the lexicon, right, into the viewership of the family. And I strongly suggest that the family get a copy of this book, right? This is the Gene Keys. This would be like considered the plus degree to the human design program, the breakdown that we've been speaking about, across a few episodes. So the Gene Key, rather than human design being somewhat more like it's definitely codon specific. It gets directly down to your personal identity. The Gene Key kind of somewhat gives you more so of an overview of what this energy represents. So I want to share with you what the 44th Gene Key represents, right? Because the 44th Gene Key is all about karmic relationships. And this is like a very precise way to even explain to the family what is this 44 energy that we're always talking about. So I want to explain it on a genetic level so we get it. All right. So the 44th gene key stands for karmic relationships. All right. The codon ring is the ring of the Illuminati. The physiology of it is the immune system, and the amino acid is glutamic acid. So these gene keys represent codons in our bodies. We have 64 codons in our bodies, right? made up of 23 chromosomes each that we get from our parents. So this is who we are on a genetic level, right? And the way that the human design breaks up is that they show your anatomy, and the anatomy is overlaid by particular gates. These gates also are scribing where the nodes or the points or the codons exist. So the 50 feet, the 54th, the 44th gene, right, is this particular gate or this codon that represents karmic relationships. All right. Um, Now the flip side of it, just like we said, every number has a positive frequency or energy, if you will, and then a negative frequency or energy, if you will, right? And the shadow side of it is interference. Okay. So the 44th gene key and its entire spectrum of frequencies concern a little understood subject that actually underpins the structure of human societies as well as the science of incarnation. This subject, which will be briefly introduced through this gene key, is the existence and nature of human fractals. Okay? Human fractals. The term fractal refers to a phenomena found in natural systems whereby patterns are found to endlessly repeat themselves holographically. The more you magnify a fractal image, the more self similar patterns you will find hiding within it. The term human fractal is an extension of this notion to human relationships, referring to the web of invisible patterns that bind certain groups of people together. In the classical Indian teachings, such ties between people are known as karmic ties. In the language of human fractals, every person you meet in your life is a part of the overall fractal pattern of your destiny, right? So there's nobody that you have in your life at this present particular moment, or there's nobody in your life that you have come into contact with at any point along the journey of your life that has been happenstance or doesn't have meaning and purpose to it. That person, whether good, bad, ugly, or indifferent, to which you consider your narrative to be, can very well be the key holder to your destiny. Right? So if we were taught to approach all of our relationships with that particular understanding, that you're looking to say, what is a life lesson that I have learned from this interaction, from this particular relationship? Or you go even further and use the particular science that's been afforded to you by way of these charts, by way of these systems, to say, I need to know specifically who this person is, starting with the person that's closest to you. First and foremost, first and foremost, the gnosis and knowledge of yourself, but the gnosis and the knowledge of yourself becomes even that much more clear once you identify the people who are closest to your circumference, to your magnetic pole, who have you brought into, this particular circumference the closest. So, you know, this is like a very localized, focalized way to explain and understand the 44 on a genetic level, as opposed to when I explain it, I say cosmically, the number 44 represents and shows evidence of the presence of intelligence, right? We're showing the cosmic weaving, how the needle goes in and out of the thread of time and space to weave a cosmic narrative that we call reality, where we show that things are related, things that seemingly seem to be unrelated are all related by way of this particular energy signature. Now, why do we use the system of Gematria to qualify this particular observation? Well, let's look at what Gematria is, right? Gematria is the Hebrew word for a word that arrives out of Greek that stands for geometry, okay? and what is actually the geometry or the geometric pattern that Gematria is bringing us a better understanding of. Numbers as shapes, right? Shapes as particular frequencies, okay? And those particular frequencies have a relationship across the different, bands of energies that we can show and prove that they connect by way of the words that are formed. Okay, so if we look at language, which is our primary tool of communication, all of us got here by way of language, right? So to speak, that your father had to say some slick shit to your mama in order for him to initiate the engagement that ultimately led to you. So language is very important, right? While you're here, we have to all utilize it to communicate, right? This is how you eat. This is how you provide for yourself. This is how you interact. This is how you socialize. Okay, so language has this space. It's very, very important. Let's look at the building block or the aminos of language. Those would be letters. Okay, so letters have their space. And the reason why Gematria is tied into Hebrew specifically is because Hebrew was a language that's considered one of the proto languages, right? They actually call it a fire language. They can show how these particular letters correspond with with star systems, right? They're fire letters. They're written in the cosmos. Feel me? So yeah, what the phone is giving a vibration or something like that, please let me know because I don't want to put nobody through that if it's not necessary.
No, it's giving off a good vibration. We vibing with
Okay.
it, bro. You good? You good, brother? Keep going. You flowing, brother. I ain't gonna interrupt you. Keep
So
going.
the amino acids are the building blocks of all creation. So when we look at letters as the building blocks of words, words ultimately become what? Sentences. These sentences become paragraphs. Paragraphs become chapters. Chapters become books. Books become novels, and novels become volumes. Right? Volumes can become script, and ultimately, these are the things that dictate and navigate. Not only our lives, but entire worlds because they say that words are worlds. So, in order for me to even explain this to you, for you to engage what I'm saying, and you to develop a picturesque idea in your mind, a vision, a picture of what's being said and conveyed, and then you project that into your right carbonated field, your celluloid field of memory. It's almost like you're burning a picture on the back of a cellulite or celluloid or carbon, right? Same way that light forest is popping and you got images coming to the forefront of this black mirror that we call a phone. Once again, I'm not physically in your phone, but if you're looking at me in 8K, you can't tell. Right? What's good? What's going on? So it's the same concept. What's going on in your mind? How are we creating these images? How are we bringing them forward? It's by way of communication, the conveyance of language, the importance of language, and the way that we can do it through these mediums, right? Of writing, of language, of speaking, of communication, the whole field of it, text and all that. So when you get down to the atomic level, the rudimentary building block phase of where all of this magic of language comes from, it starts with the letters. And the thing that differentiates Hebrew from, again, other languages is that it's alphanumeric. So there's a numerical equivalent to each letter, right? Which renders each word having a numerical equivalence, right? And then with that numerical equivalence, there's correspondence across said numerical equivalence. Case in point, a word like let's just go for talk about we're talking about 44. When you go through the gematria of 44, you come up with the number 144, right? But then when you add up the word April 4th, right, which also equals 44, you come up with the number 144. So it's the energetic correspondence of both of those words meaning the same thing, which, denotes that the number will add up to it. It's not necessarily the word itself, it's the meaning of the word. So that's only the system, that's kind of like the only language that you can see that particular system play out. So the way that I explain it is like we are eavesdropping or looking at the mechanics and the coding of the Most High. So this is why we're saying Gematria, you know, that divine, that God Gematria, that divine Gematria versus conspiracy theories. There's a entire, section of YouTube that deals with quote unquote Gematria, but never assigns or never looks for the spirituality and actually what it is that they are observing, the design that they are now eavesdropping on. They have pulled the cover back correct because the cover will be the interface. What's the interface? Like you got a television screen, or you got this TV screen of this phone, or you have this actual phone. Inside of this phone is wiring, right? It's not the prettiest mechanism that's telling this phone how to operate, where to send signals to. It's the same thing with my body, right? If you go underneath, there's going to be a whole network of activity taking place that's not going to look the same on camera, right? Compared to the goddamn interface or the avatar that you're looking at right now. You feel me? So when the brothers and the sisters are doing the gematria, the wonderful work that's being done, right? But they're doing it and they're making objectionable views about it, saying that it's evidence of them uncovering a conspiracy. It's like, no, bro, right? What you are observing and uncovering is the mechanics, how everything is connected and intertwined. Okay? And yes, if you have observation of that or you have a knowledge of that, you can potentially manipulate that. You feel me? But you know, everything that you see that fits into that particular description that you're looking for it to fit into doesn't always necessarily have to mean that. It's almost like what they say, if you're looking for it hard enough or long enough, it has a tendency to exist because you collapse in waves into particles with your observation, especially your mental observation, especially if you out here causing a resonant frequency by saying, I'm connecting this dot to that dot to this dot to that dot. Now you are creating, what appears to actually be a whole geometric figure, right? You're connecting a whole design, an astral design, right? And we have the tendency when we speak about what the actual shape of the number 44 is, the best way to describe it and explain it is a tesseract, right? A tesseract is a cube within a cube. A cube within itself, if we look at a cube properly, we see that it has 6 sides, but it has 8 points, right? It is a 44 resonator. It's a three-dimensional square, okay? And a square has 4 sides. And the number 4 is the only number in the cosmos that does this. 2 plus 2 is 4. 2 times 2 is 4. That's the only number in the universe to do that for you, right? And that gives it quantum dimensionality. Because in one spectrum you're going like this, and another spectrum you're going like that, and they both intersect and meet at 4, which represents the worlds, 4 worlds at that, right? And what is the name for quote unquote God himself? It's the 4-letter name Tetragrammaton, Yod Hey Vod Hey, right? Whose numerical equivalency is 26. But when you separate the 26 and the 26 equally, you get 13 and 13. And when you add up 1 and 3 together, you get 4 and 4. You feel me? So we had a lecture. This lecture that I'm about to deliver tomorrow on 4/16/2020. It originally was scheduled for 4422, right? Which brings it to that divine resonant frequency of 444. Okay. Um, but spirit told me that it wasn't time yet. They said observe the energy, right? Observe the energy first, right? Report on it. Don't report it, report on it. See what takes place on 4-4 and how it ties this energy up all together. Now, on the rising of April 4th, okay, at the suggestion of our good brother here, Father Rich, we made our way to Stone Mountain, okay, here in Georgia on the 33rd parallel, okay. So on 4-4, we went up to the 33rd Crystal Mountain of Stone Mountain, okay, and I got there like probably 6:45 a.m., right? So I made the first hike, and me, Red, uh, Tassili, and her soulmate, brother Adam, right? And Adam equals 45, interestingly enough, in Gematria. But Adamu, right? Or Damu, for that matter, damn, equals 44, right? So that's interesting. So we go up to the mountain and we get to the top and we make our, we open the way. We do our opening the way ceremonies, which is pretty much like a 4-4 ceremony because you honor all four ways, but you also honor, the heavens, and you also honor what's below you, also honor what's within you. So it's more like a seven, a 7-way dedication that we do to our ancestors opening the way. And it was beautiful because we were doing it as the sun was rising, and there were fleets of white birds there. I thought they were white doves, but I'm like, I haven't seen doves out in the wild in nature. You know what I'm saying? I'm like, do doves travel in packs in nature? Like, how does that work? You only see them releasing them shits out of windows, and there was hawks in the sky too, right? Come to find out, they was white pigeons. I'd never seen a white pigeon. I'm from New York, right? They were white pigeons. They were flying with other pigeons, okay? But they were in groups of four, and they had a lot of uniformity. So we did our dedication. I did a lot all around that particular mountain, that rising. I remember because it was too windy to stand still. The wind chill was busting, and it was 44 degrees. Right on top of that, it was 44 degrees on 4-4. Right, I think Red got a screenshot on his IG. So we left the first session, and then before we left, we had a conversation with Tassili at the top of the mountain, and I asked her. I said, "Are cars allowed up here? Are trucks allowed up here? If anything?" She said that she never saw anything of that nature. She wasn't aware of that. She didn't think so. Right? And I said, "Wow." Okay. She said the furthest that she ever saw it come is the midway point. If anybody been up the mountain, you know that all black shack where people be doing snacks at and stuff like that, and people take rest when they going up initially. Yeah, that part. She said that she seen the truck come as far as that before. So I said, cool. So we left right with her contingency, and we were going down the mountain to now meet King Simon and Brother Rich, who had arrived. So we met them midway point. Did our proper exchange, bid farewell to Tassili and Adam, and we went back up with Brother Rich and King Simon. Right. So we get to the top, we get into ceremony. The brothers go live. We're talking that talk, right? We building on numbers. Okay? We're building on numbers. We're building on 4, and we're building on 44 in particular. Out of nowhere, an all white F-250 pulls to the top of the mountain, right? Out of nowhere. And pulls up in the midst of the build, okay? While these brothers is on live, and turn the whip to an angle where you can see the big ass 4x4 on the side, right? And he got out and he said that his name was Dennis and he was from a ministries. And he wanted to know, what house of God do you brothers worship in? And you know, we was talking that talk with him because my dude, he was in the craft too. And this was the night after Brother Rich had on the illustrious Professor James Small, right? Correcting all of the disinformation out there pertaining to the antiquity of the craft and how it is impossible for the student to assume the role of the master, and the master got to acquiesce to that BS as if he don't see through it, right? 33,000 miles away. You feel me? Like, how can you even name something a platonic solid, right? How could you even name something a platonic solid if you was the student that got the information from the teachers who showed you in architecture what exactly to do with those shapes and have been doing it for thousands of years before you even came on the scene? But you have the nerve to put your name on a thing and then it be presented to the rest of the world as if you discovered it? Okay? So I seen that 4x4 on the side of the truck, and I'm like, okay, 4x4, 4 times 4, 16. Cool, I get it. You know, why is that resonance? Why is that number hitting me like that? And we left the mountain. It didn't all, register. See, the thing with the 44, because again, the fact that it represents fractals, right? The reason that it represents this aspect of fractals is that there are apparent connections, but they might not be that apparently right away, right? They're fractals. They represent relationships, not only human relationships, but when we are consecrated or firm in our relationships, right, as humans on this plane, first internally, secondarily with your family directly, third with your tribe, right? Fourth with your nation, fifth with your country, sixth with the world, seven with the galaxy. You feel me? There's all of these different bands and tiers of relationships that one has to go through to solidify as above, so below. Because you're standing on your square surrounded by a circle above your head. Both of them equal 360. Okay? Both of them equal 360. Because again, when you add up April 4th, it equals 144. When you add up 44 equals 144, right? 144 is the key. Isn't that even what they say in math? Isn't what they say in music? That 144, that resonant frequency, okay? So, you know, when we're speaking about, and then that's a Fibonacci number. So when we're talking about fractals, when we're talking about connections, the number 44 itself, they consider that a Fibonacci number. It's not even a Fibonacci, it's a Fibonacci number. Google that shit. Google that shit. We want to talk about fractals. right? I've identified and showed you in a sequence such as pi, there's supposed to be a consortium of random numbers that are non-repeating. Why would you find 44 and 88, right? At least 8 times in a sequence. In the first 100 sequence, though. So again, we're looking at something that's algorithmic, right? And it's a way, it's a language, at least it's one that I utilize. Let me begin by saying that. Or let me rewind and posit this particular disclaimer that you are now rocking with the best. You are inside of my mind, right? This is how I see the world. I'm not saying that you have to necessarily, sign up to this aspect of my perspective of how it makes sense out of reality. But this shit is clear cut. So let's go further. So simultaneously, while we was on the mountain with Simon and company, right? And Brother Rich, okay? Brother Rich, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here, Blue. I'm
Simultaneously,
here, Blue.
while we were there on the mountain, and I was saying that for some reason I wanted to wait to do this lecture on the 16th, and I didn't know that it was going to be on the 16th until I saw that Jeep, and I met that brother named Dennis. And when I looked up the meaning of Dennis, Dennis means the god of wine because it's Dionysus, right? But that also is a clear connection to my Ori, my head. That's why I got my hair out tonight, right? Obatala, right? The white, right? My human design denotes that I should always be at mountaintops, the highest points. Okay, my comedic profile says that I'm a Saw and Tahuti, whereas red is Heru and Tahuti or Heru Kuti, right? And then my Ori is Obatala. So I'm able to synthesize all of those aspects of self, all of those quote unquote characters, especially utilizing their numbers because Obatala's number is 8. And I'm able to synthesize all of that and make sense of it to say, oh, I got on all white today, which is his colors. Here go the white pigeon, which is his motif, right? Here goes Dennis in the white truck, 4x4, right? And I'm like, all right, so the 16th it is. While we were up there doing what it is that we were doing, making proclamations to the world about what we were intending, or, with our mandate, with our invocation, with our proclamation to the world was, is to let white supremacy know that we was back in the building, right? That we was the new goats on the mountain. Was that not our proclamation that
Yes,
day?
sir. Yes, sir.
Simultaneously, at the same time, while we were making that proclamation to the planet, to the world, they were killing a melanated man, right? Named Patrick. Okay? So the footage that has came out that has everybody on edge a day after the quote unquote New York shooter, right? Is footage of this brother getting executed, and it's reminiscent, okay, of the last incident where people publicly saw an execution, okay, around the time of a solar flare. Because May 29th, as we famously share every single time that we are up here, shout out to my brother Al Kibalon, right? The George Floyd riots popped off on May 29th. Simultaneously, at the same time, it can be shown specifically, right? A solar flare popped off and it inaugurated the beginning of the solar maximum, right? Or the solar cycle 125. Now, that solar cycle had been in a solar minimum. It had been sleep. The last time they had a solar flare, it was in October of 2017. Okay? And suddenly, this shit popped off when all of the melanin, ironically, around quote unquote inner cities got ignited and decided to go in the streets and ignite it. You dig what I'm saying? And our premise with Corona Rising is that you have a direct biological connection, right, to the sun itself, to the corona. Your corona is rising. You feel me? And this was the claim that we have repetitively made, and we have stood on our square, and we have watched the entire narrative. You feel me? You know, produce receipts, if you will. So at the same time that we were on the mountain, okay, in Grand Rapids, Michigan, a 26-year-old brother named Patrick Loyola, right? Not to be confused with Loyola, like the Jesuit, but this brother was a child of Congolese immigrants from the Congo, okay, who came here, and he was in a traffic stop, and they executed this brother, okay, in a very horrendous manner. I didn't see the video. I've yet to see George Floyd's video. You know what I'm saying? I do that for my own mental sanctity. Because we need to talk. You know, we'll definitely want to dovetail and talk about mental illness and our continuing conversation with that, because that's directly tied to fractal relationships, right? The fractal. How can you ever maintain an outward relationship with a compatible mate if you're going through this internal struggle that has never been remedied? You know what I'm saying? You can't even speak about it. The shit is eating you from inside. You're losing the fucking. You're losing the war with yourself, and it shows, right? So, what is the nature of relationships in the community gonna look like? What's the nature of the community gonna look like? Whether it's physical or online. Right. So we have to figure out how to make these corrections and these connections. Because the thing that they say about the fractal 44 energy is that our failure to learn from these lessons mandate that they always be repeated through different people or through different situations, right? So that's why I take this turn to show you, by no shadow of a doubt, through Gematria as a geometric art form. It deals with arts and sciences, not conspiracy. You feel me? And only through this can we qualify certain things to be like, yo, we're not speculating. Okay? So, again, when we don't separate incidents and we're mindful enough to remember how things connect, even though they would seem to be seemingly unrelated, right? When you make these connections, you collapse time and space on itself, which also equal 44. Okay? So we remember 7 years ago on April 4th, they killed the man in South Carolina named Walter Scott. They shot him in his back too. And the fight was over taser gun as well. Okay? Now somebody would say, oh, what that don't got nothing to do with this because that was 7 years ago. So what if it happened on the same day? Right? So what if there's a bunch of circumstances or, different parts and pieces that you can point to show similarity, right? Those could still just be coincidences. But if I could unanimously show you that this is an example of this 44 fractal energy, right? And our inability to, for whatever reason, learn from the first lesson, it always has a manifestation, okay, later on. And the thing that makes it so key of it being a 7 year cycle is a 7 year cycle is a lunar cycle as well, right? And when they killed Walter Scott, they did it on the third blood moon, right? We did a series called Tetrad Blood Moons, right? The Tetrad, which is four, it dealt with four blood moons. The blood moons were all held on key points and junctures of time. They all fell on quote unquote Israeli or Jewish holidays, Passover in particular. Okay? And there was a book written about these tetrads by an evangelical pastor whose name's Paul Hagee, I believe. And these are the evangelicals that are on their soapbox right now saying that quote unquote Putin is having a spiritual slash religious war. Right? And all of this is going to be explained tomorrow in full length during this lecture. So Paul Hagee and the evangelicals, right, they side with the Zionists on that side of the ocean, okay, and they say, look, we do ceremony rituals during these times to protect the state of Israel and to make sure that, right, prophecy is fulfilled, okay, because the Zionists are looking for one thing and the evangelicals are looking for something totally different, but they have mutual interests, okay, and that is a continuance of, you know, you not coming back to a restoration of your gnosis of knowledge itself. You feel me? Because both of them are borrowing your birthright. Okay? So, 7 years prior, on the third blood moon, which was April 4th, 2015, okay, they assassinate this man in cold blood. All right? And then they turn around and they do the same thing 7 years later on the same day. So I'm going to show you this. I'm going to use my phone and turn the screen on it. All right. And I just want to show you the undeniable proof that we have uncovered utilizing Gematria as a numerical system to show, you know, hold on, let me see.
Okay, family. I think Blue hung up on himself. I'll wait for him to. Okay, here you go. All
These,
right.
the way that the camera is situated in this back office, do they allow us to flip it? Do you know, Brother Rich?
Yeah, say that again.
Do they allow you to flip this camera to like a 360?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure.
All right, give me a second. Let me see. Settings. All right. I don't think I could turn this camera around to show the screenshot. But what I share with the family, all right, especially if you tune in to the webinar tomorrow, I can show you the actual screenshot. But when we ran both of their names, Walter Scott and Patrick Loyola, we got, let me see, one, two, three, four, five, six. All right. So out of a name cipher system that probably has 20 different gematria counting systems, we found a direct link, right? The same numerical equivalency for both of these brother names in six of those systems. Okay? So 6 out of 20 different mathematical counting systems, we were able to deduce that these individuals have the same energetic signature, right? Forget if they have the GUI, which is the interface, the overlay, which is the avatar that we're saying, oh, this is a different person. Energetically, we're looking at the same person getting assassinated, almost identical, right? The brother in Grand Rapids, he got assassinated at 8 a.m. We was on the mountain, right, doing our thing. The other brother in North Carolina, he got assassinated at 9:30 a.m. 7 years prior. I'm sure, like, give or take some daylight savings, that's probably the same time. You feel me? And we could even get even more technical and look at the longitudinal and latitude, all of that information. We could do all that to say, see how this thing lines up. But before we scream conspiracy, right? Before we point fingers to say, oh, these people plan to do this particular way to pinpoint it, why don't we say that we're looking at something, right? That's quote unquote spiritual, and we're making an observation, right? We're pulling the covers back and we're seeing the mechanics of how these things operate. I want us to get out of the mindset of being quote unquote victims by any and all means, right? Because this information is to give you back power, but the power comes from you actually applying spirituality to your focus. The way that you look at this thing, you should look at it with spirit, right? And we shouldn't also always be so, um, you know, again, so quick to follow somebody else's accusation of everything being conspiratorial, and said person has never shown you any inclination towards spirituality. So if you have no spiritual eye, you can encase the ability to see things for what they are in the realm of spirit, right? How can I ever expect that you're going to uncover some of these truths, right? So you should not allow other people who do not have that particular approach to decoding to decode for you, because they're going to leave out a very big chunk, and everything is just going to sound like victimhood, right? And so there's a long string. Will Smith, 44 resonator. You feel me? The situation on the subway. Again, this is stuff I don't want to put on YouTube. So you got to pull up, to the situation. I don't necessarily just want to pop that out. You feel me? So the webinar will be going down tomorrow at 4:44 p.m. The links can be found at ktluniversity.com. Okay. And we're going to get it in, right? I have a lot of information to share. You feel me? I have a lot of information to share. And all of it is, again, with the intent that you are able to see the connection in the cosmos, or the relationship, should I say, that we all have to one another, that we all have to all things, that all things have to one another at all times, so we can reformat our mind, right? To not look at things as compartmentalized, but you look at thing and every single thing as a whole, holistically as one, right? Everything affects everyone, everything affects everything. Those are the concepts and the teachings that the masterest of the master teachers always tell us. Now we just have empirical proof to show and prove that that's exactly what's taking place. You feel me? But there's also a conversation taking place. And there's also opportunity to extract from these situations lessons, rather always than going into them quote unquote emotionally. Because, one incident was utilized for um, data harvesting, right? One aspect, right? One day they had a shooting, which also equals 44, and they were able to harness all of that data. And then the next day they had this particular incident, and now they are able to harness all of that data based on raw emotions. You feel me? Both of them shootings. Okay? You got to ask yourself, though, to the benefit of who is all of this energy being harvested, right? We need to take time out to look at things scientifically. The master teachers, when they taught, they said that you were supposed to give something a 2 week shadow, right? Before you even spoke on it, you should accumulate the information for 2 to 3 weeks to see what's being said and what's not being said, or see what's not being said anymore after it's been said. Do the knowledge and then you do the dissertation. But times are different because social media, it kind of requires us to be current with current events. And for some of us, this is where we learn our news from. You know what I'm saying? Our daily news at that. I watch Urban X weekly, right? Because nobody disseminates and tells the news in the way that Black Dot and Malcolm do, right? So the times have changed. We necessarily, we can't hold on to this. We have to be on top of the news. We got to be in front of it. You feel me? But I want us to understand that there's a larger narrative taking place, and in this particular Aries season, is dealing with an energy and an aspect of war, right? But the war, the jihad, is an inner war, right? This also is a month that has two new moons in it, and we're under a full moon right now, right? And it's also Good Friday, and let's take a step. Let's go there because this is what's considered Holy Week. Jesus was a 44 resonator. If you add up Jesus, you get 444. If you add up Messiah, you get 444. So it's not the number again; it's the word that has the synergistic relationship to the other word that shows the connection to the number. It's just not a random pairing to say, oh, this 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 word equals this number and that word equals that number, and they don't have no relationship. No, they have a direct relationship with one another. You feel me? So astrologers and historians, after reading the Bible, they said if the narrative is to the point, right? If it's logical, if it's to the letter, as you say it is, if this man that you say named quote unquote Jesus Christ did live, he would have had to died on April 3rd, 33 AD, because that's the only day, according to astrological records, where they had a lunar earthquake. I mean, they had a lunar eclipse, blood moon, right? And they had an earthquake as well. All of these things happened on April 3rd, 33 AD. That would have to be the day that goes down in history as Good Friday when they nailed him to the cross, right? If that narrative is true and that narrative is not false, right? So he would have went in on a Friday, April 3rd. Ironically, right? Last year, April 3rd, okay, because they had Easter fell on April 4th last year. It was a 4-4 resonant, and when you put Easter Sunday in the Gematria calculator, you're gonna get the number 44, right? Easter itself is a 44 resonator, okay? And why does it resonate or have a resonance with the number 44? Because that is a number that also resonates with Messiah or resonates with Jesus, right? Or these particular concepts of renewal of spirit, right? Or newness, or the season of Aries, because Aries equals 44, right? And normally Easter is going to be in the Aries season, indicative of the season of Aries. Hence the fact that Ishtar was the deity that governed over, right? Aries, because she represented a lunar principle. Hence the fact that Aries is after every full moon. I mean, or Easter is after every Aries full moon or something like that, right? One of them shits. They call it the spring equinox moon or whatever, right? So all of these things are measured and tethered to these principles, right? Because again, when we stop getting lost in the language of what the words mean and we look at the energy of the words or the frequency, then we can see the connection, right? So last year during the Easter Holy Week, we got news on April 3rd, which was a Saturday, that our brother Earl Simmons had a coma the night before, which was a Friday, April 2nd, which was Good Friday of last year, right? And the hip hop world fell into distress. But coincidingly, excuse me, because the news was also saying that's when you know that water been good, right? Belching is evidence of oxygen intake, same way that babies do, right? What you gotta ask yourself is, if the food was alive that we eat, why do we don't belch no more, right? We should probably be going back to eating baby food or some shit like that, so we could belch again. It had oxygen in it by evidence of our belching, okay? And the only time that we belch is on Thanksgiving when we stuff ourselves like turkeys. Can I get an amen? Oh yeah, I'm teaching. I'm doing my first sermon on the 24th. I got my minister license. Yes sir, yes sir. Absolutely. Pastor Paul is coming back to the people, and I'm pushing on peas. Pushing on peas. Okay. Predictions and prophecies. You know, I'm a PIMP, right? What does that stand for, Pastor Paul? I am. I am pretty intentional. That ain't it. I'm gonna save that, right? But nonetheless, the day that we found out about our blessed brother Earl Simmons, and again, the news was reporting that he died of a heart attack induced by him ODing. Okay, so we were mourning him April 3rd, 2020. The same day in Kemet, they unearthed 22 mummies from the Duat, from the underworld, right? And they brought them to the overworld to bring them to the new Royal Museum. But they had a whole, royal ceremony, and they had what was called sarcophagus. They transported them in what was called sarcophaguses, right? Where they built these new contraptions and everything. They had a royal parade through the streets of Kemet leading to the museum. So here we have the dog Pooh going into a kinetomic state, a coma, into the underworld, and they're bringing mummies, which represent that particular state, into the overworld, transporting them, 22 of them, right, to the Royal Museum. But then on April 22nd, our brother gets buried as well and turned into the ground after he had a motorcade bring him from Yonkers to the Barclays, right? On that good 4-4 energy, was everybody not in there dressed in red, right? Was the dog father not synonymous with the red energy, that Martian energy, that blood energy, that 44 energy, right? inside of the Barclays rust exterior stadium that sits at the artery of the heart of Brooklyn, which was Flatbush Avenue and Atlantic Avenue, right? They call Flatbush the heart of Brooklyn. It's the artery that runs through the heart of Brooklyn. And Atlantic Avenue is the current representing the Atlantic Ocean that runs by way of that in front of a rust spaceship. Okay? And rust represents iron, and iron also represents the number 44 by way of its connection, of course, to iron and Aries and Mars. All of those things equal 44. And the atomic number of iron itself is 26, just like Yahweh, again, representing two halves, 13 plus 13, or 4 plus 4, 26 equaling 8, either which way that you cut it or flip it. Okay? So these are some very, miraculous times and some wonderful ways to see the world through the eyes of, this is a majestic view of the world through the eyes of P. Morpheus. You know, my apologies if I have expanded your consciousness and you just can't get it to snap back. But I in my world, everything is connected and everything is part of an elaborate, beautiful picture, good, bad, ugly, or indifferent. We are in this to learn lessons. We are in this to level up, even through failure. That's the best shit. Like, you know how much manure is worth on the market right now? Nigga, you know what the shit's going for?
Mm.
You've been through some shit. Go sell it. Okay? You've been through some shit. Okay, go sell it. Right? People is in the market for shit right now. So when you turn shit into fertilizer, you alchemize it. You know what I'm saying? But your failure to do so, it just remains toxic. So, the choice is yours.
Blue, I know you got the lecture tomorrow. So, we're gonna
Yes.
let's save the rest for tomorrow. I want the people, they have to, what do they have to go to, KTL University?
Yes. Yes.
All right, so
KTLUniversity.com.
let's take before we leave though, let's take a few questions from the family. That was
Let's do it.
that was an amazing build, Blue. And
Thank you.
I'm glad that you was able to come on this channel and deliver that build.
Yeah, I
Connecting
ran out of water.
Gematria. Yeah, they was asking what
But
Blue drinking.
yeah, I mean, you was there on the mountain. You know,
Mm,
I don't know if you shared the story with the people, but these things really, my human design, and believe it or not, I'm illogical. Like, I'm not even supposed to be attempting to explain this shit. It just happens. You
right,
feel me?
right.
But you know, again, I have developed the language because semantics. Again, semantics are the rudimentary aspects of the way that we develop this language to explain these illogical things. And semantics itself is developed in a part of the brain called the Brodmann's 44. And the brain equals 44 in Gematria. So, you know, it's just something that I feel compelled that I have to do at this point.
Um, yeah, let's take a few questions. We're gonna leave the rest for tomorrow, but
All
we're
right.
gonna take about 2 or 3 questions from the family. I don't see do y'all have any questions? If you have questions, before we get to the questions, family, as always, make sure you support the channel. If you would like, you can hit up the Cash App, $ Black Magic 363, send a donation. And for Blue Pill, I'm sure the brother wants y'all to go to his website and support him by signing up for
Yes,
tomorrow's
indeed. Yes.
lecture. You know what I'm saying, family? Let's get to some
Yes.
Q&A
Get
real
you a
quick.
ticket.
Yeah, get you a ticket, family. Let's get to some questions from the family. Um hmm. Yeah, I don't see any questions. Failure also, Yeah, I guess y'all don't have questions tonight. Yeah, it's too
Yeah, that's cool.
heavy. Yeah. Somebody said, Rich, is your Buddha statue too heavy for my astral body to carry? I'll leave your mic. Okay. I don't even get it, but okay. Let's see. Yeah, I guess we gonna leave it there. I don't,
Yes, indeed.
I don't scroll up. Okay, here's some questions here. Somebody asked about Joe Biden. What's going on with Joe Biden? Let's get to this question first. I would have,
Um,
you would answer that, or you would have.
yeah, I saw what appeared to be Joe Biden naked, and I can't unsee that. So I don't want to talk. That's your boy. Y'all gonna have to deal with that.
Oh
We already
man.
blew the trumpet. Pun intended. Pause. Yeah.
Hey,
Whew.
let me. Somebody want to know what's the best way to get started with Gematria. Best way to get started, Blue.
Start looking into your name, right? Make it a personal inquiry, right? And there's so many different ways that you can go about doing that. And I wanna speak to and edify the importance of really incorporating numerology into this, because once you deduce a said quote unquote number, then that number has an energy, a frequency, and a signature. You should go to an expert to get that decoded and deciphered. You have Lloyd Strayhorn in this community, and you have King Simon, right? And
Mm,
then the advanced aspect of you going into Gematria is you learning some Kabbalah, and we have for that we have A. Rashid, okay? And also, if you have some knowledge of astrology, that helps as well. And then when you get into human design, it will all make sense because that's the synthesis of all of these systems.
indeed.
So yeah,
Uh,
start with your name. Go to a gematria calendar. Come up with those numbers, and then you got to crunch those numbers and go and look at those numbers. You got to research those numbers. All right.
mm. Real quick, family. Shout out Black Dot for the gear. Supported the brother.
Yes, indeed.
Shout out to my brother Kyrie
Shout out
Irving.
to the
Had an
God.
amazing season. He had an amazing season this year.
How
You
about
know
that?
he ain't take that thing. So the brother was on point. He was sharp.
Yeah.
His body. His body was ready for it. He had an amazing
How about
season
that?
this year.
Right? How about that?
You
In
know
the
what I'm
Nets
saying?
building,
Indeed, in the next building.
sacrificing. Again, it came down to blood, right? Again, I told you they built that place on top of where Sabi had his office, and ironically enough, the office was called the Ogun Healing Institute before they changed it to another name. So, for that brother to stand firm, you know, on his square in that building, and it all come down to him defending the sovereignty and the sanctity of his blood. Again, I think that's a whole nother quantum way to look at this 44 resonance. So they had what was called a super fan. There was the Bronx Nets super fan. You can Google this dude. He was a graffiti writer. He wore the number 44. He died. I think he had a freak accident. So they have ceremonies every year where the whole stadium puts the 44 jersey on. I mean, I got so much 44 information on the Barclays it don't even make sense. But that's one of the clear ones. Yeah.
Last question we
Shout
gonna
out to
take.
Irvin.
Yeah, last question we gonna take from Janice Roy. Thanks for the super chat. She wants to know, can you explain Janice portal number 11 for tomorrow's full moon? What does it mean?
Janice Portal number 11. I don't know what that is.
Yeah, I'm trying to put it on the screen, but I can't for some reason. I don't,
Uh,
maybe if you can you see it? JANUS
oh,
portal number
Janus Portal number
Janus.
11.
Uh,
Well, Janus, that's the root of January, and
mhm.
Janus is the two-faced god. And the number, of course, of the two-faced god is 11. Um, January being the 11th month, as opposed to it being the first month in the Gregorian calendar. If we want to follow the numerical sequence of September being 7, October being 8, November being, 9, December or Dec being 10, then January is 11, right? And January stands for Janus, which is the double face or the two face god. Um, how that applies specifically to this full moon, I would be interested in, hearing it from the sister that asked the question because I don't have that off the top. But you know, when I close my eyes and I say, all right, just what do you come up with? I understand that Janice also is the twin, it's the mirror, right? And this is a time because April is when you have two new moons. So the ability for you to do shadow work in this month is to heighten this, right? Because the way that you operate and program new moon energy is that's when you set your intent, your focus and your intent. But it's also considered the black moon because it's the time where you don't see no moonlight. But when you have two new moons in one month, it's considered a black moon.
Mm.
So we have a black moon, new moon coming up, right? I believe that's on the 20th. Shout out to Kebalon. I think him and Red is doing something on that day. So the way that I would interpret, of course, even with the full moon, and the full moon deals with illumination and being luminous and full and giving birth to something, this is still a prime time for you to do shadow work, right? Take the warrior energy of Aries and go to war with yourself. That's what this lecture is about. Being able to find peace in the midst of war, right? There's a war going on inside no man is safe from. You feel me? That you can't escape from. You got to do this work. And you can go online and Google and see the examples of what the shit look like right now when you're not doing the work, right? You have Googleable examples in real time in this Aries season. Um, and again, Aries deals with the head. So the head, is also the home to the brain. It's also the home to the mind, even though mind is Mercury, right? The head is Aries. We seen a man go and smack another man in his face. That's all Aries energy. But we did a program here and we spoke about what do we see with the significant aspect that we can speak on without being catty. And we said it was mental health. Is that not the talking topic right now? Hmm?
Facts.
Is Aries not come full circle to all be about specifically melanated man mental health, mental March Madness, right? So, yeah, when I see Janice full moon or the Janice number 11, that's dealing with that aspect. You know what I'm saying? So,
Indeed. Once again, my brother, powerful show. Look forward to tomorrow, my brother. Family,
mhm.
go to ktluniversity.com to get more information on that. Blue, any other contact information you want to leave the people with before we get out of here, my brother?
Yeah, goldwater.com, GOLDEWATER. That's goldwater.com. We got that Pure Moss up there as well. All right. Beautiful labeling. Got that Pure Moss in the building. Of course, that silver bullet, make sure that you stay protected at all times. All right. Goldwater.com, GOLDEWATER. And we also got the drip. You can get some of this good, this good jewelry. CosmicDust.com, COZMIKDUST, CosmicDust.com. All right, we got apparel over there. We got jewelry. We got raw stones. All right, Netaverse. Shout out to the Netaverse family. Shout out to the Discord family.
Shout out
Shout out to the
Universe.
KOD family. That's a whole nother conversation that we need to have at some point.
Indeed.
But yeah, I appreciate you. All right. Peace to the family. Peace, love, and light, y'all.
Peace,
I'm out.
family. We out of here. Have a good night, family. Peace.